In this assignment, we are going to compare a case study that shows us different finance sources, allowing us to establish a finance plan that is profitable, even though we are using a movie that has the same budget and the same profitability components. Let's see what we can do in optimizing profitability by changing finance sources. We talked about the various finance sources, and we are now focusing on putting together a balanced finance plan that considers various distribution revenues and bank loans and incentive loans and equity investments in a way that they are showing a profitability component. Pre-sales of ideally 30 to 35% of the production budget would be optimal to verify the market demand of a film. Subsidies, which are non-recoverable finance sources of at least 20% of the budget, can help elevate profitability. A bank loan of 30 to 35% pre-sales would help, together with a gap loan against unsold rights, which are basically the rights we have available after we made our pre-sales. And the equity investment would then cover the balance. Let's see what that finance plan would look like if we have the same movie financed 100% with equity versus using a balanced finance structure as described here. For this $10 million movie, we are looking at a globally viable genre, something like an action thriller with name cast, a strong director, an experienced team, and a very globally viable script. So it's not an art house movie or a small little movie. It's a movie you would make particularly to be sold globally in the distribution market, which is the idea for most movies, of course. You would engage a sales agent who would project the potential distribution revenues. Ideally, that sales agent will look at about 70 to 75% of the budget to be generated through the international distribution revenues. And that is a level that is listed on the take level, which is the low level. If we can make that happen with a film, we know that we have the right components that the sales agent can sell. And that is something that obviously they want to focus on. So do we as producers and investors. The project would then generate pre-sales of about 30 to 35% to verify in the marketplace that buyers would actually want it. And they would look at the script, the talent, the cast, the genre, and of course the budget in order to determine if this is a movie they want to pre-buy through a pre-sale. If the project is promising to them, they will pre-buy, and then we can go ahead and put together our finance plan. Now in this example, we have a movie here, $10 million. We are looking at 35% of the budget to be generated through the US pre-sale, or US sale in this case. It's not going to be a pre-sale, it's going to be a sale after the movie is finished. And we're looking at 75% of the budget to be generated through the international marketplace. So this $10 million movie is projected to generate $11 million in revenues. And the equity we're going to use here is 100%. We're simply just going to ask an investor to give us $10 million to make the movie. Let's see what happens and if the movie is profitable. So we got our $10 million check, we made our movie, we generated actually $11 million with the movie in gross distribution revenues, but now we have to pay things. We have to pay our collection agent, who is collecting all the revenues from the distributors and charges us about 1%. 1% of $11 million distribution revenues is $110,000. The sales agent will charge us, of course, a sales fee, in this case 16% of the sales they have generated. 16% of $11 million is $1,760,000. We have a bank loan normally, but in this case we don't, because the equity investor is giving us the full $10 million. We don't even have enough money generated to pay the premium of 20%, which is normally due, because the total expenses are $11,870,000, which is basically showing us a loss on this movie of $870,000. In this next scenario, we are looking at balancing our finance plan. We're making the same movie, we're making the same revenues of $11 million, but we are going to use different finance sources. So we are implementing bank loans, equity investments, subsidies, etc. in order to see if we can now make the movie for a profit. So now let's take a look at our finance plan here. We have a $10 million movie. We're going to attempt to reduce the equity in order to make this movie profitable. The movie, again, $10 million, is going to have pre-sales of 35% of the budget, which is $3.5 million. The pre-sale down payment that is made by the distributor who is purchasing the pre-sale distribution agreement, the first installment is 20% of the pre-sale amount. 20% of 3.5 million is 700,000. That's the first money we're getting as a first payment installment from our buyers. So then we're going to look at our bank loan. The bank loan will look at the pre-sale contracts and say, aha, you pre-sale $3.5 million. Great, we like those contracts. We know you got a down payment already from the distributor of 700,000, so we will give you a bank loan of 2,800,000. We will then look at maybe also giving you a gap loan. A gap loan is a loan against the unsold rights. The pre-sale loan is against the pre-sales. What is left would be the rights we can still sell after we pre-sell our distribution rights. So if I have altogether distribution revenues and deduct the pre-sales from that, we have unsold rights. In this case, it's $4 million. The bank will not cash out the entire $4 million because they don't know if we're selling all the rights. So they say we're going to apply a 50% discount, and what we'll do is we'll give you 50% of the $4 million unsold rights. So we give you another $2 million, and then we're going to deduct obviously interest charges. $2 million for the gap loan, reflecting 50% of unsold rights. $2.8 million for the pre-sale loan, which comes through $3.5 million in pre-sales minus the down payment we already received, will get us $4.8 million, and the interest charge for that is 12%, and $576,000 are being deducted. So what do we have available to cover the budget? It would be $4,244,000. How much do we have to pay the bank back? $4,800,000, because we have to then pay the interest. We're not going to stop at the bank loan. We also want a incentive loan. So how does that work? We're going to think about shooting the movie in a region where we are being subsidized for spending the $10 million there and shooting the movie there, right? So we can go to the bank and say, or to a lender for that matter, and say we're going to shoot the movie in, let's say, New Mexico. They're giving us 20% of the budget as a subsidy, and we would like to use that money and include it in the finance plan as a loan from you in order to get the money in advance at the time of shooting the film, so we don't have to wait to make the movie first and then get the money, which would increase our equity. In this case, if we get a loan against the incentive that is to be paid to us later by the incentive region, we can get the $2 million, use it for the finance plan, and reduce the equity that is needed to cover the budget. After we have established our bank loan and our subsidy loan, we now have to look at how much equity do we need in order to cover our $10 million budget. In this case, we need 30.8%. That is $3,760,000 versus, in case study A, $10 million. So it's a third. And that should hopefully help us in generating a profitable outcome for this movie after applying this balanced finance plan. So let's take a look at our summary, our complete finance plan to establish a financial structure that can be profitable. Again, we're making the movie, it's $10 million. We are generating distribution rights revenues of 35% of the budget after the movie is finished. That is $3.5 million. We are generating international distribution revenues of 75% of $10 million. That is $7.5 million. Altogether, our gross distribution revenue is $11 million. First thing we do, we define our pre-sales and down payment. Our pre-sales is 35% of the budget, $3.5 million. The distributors pay 20% of that as a first installment and will pay 80% of that when the movie is delivered. That means we're going to have available $700,000 as the first payment. The bank will look at the $3.5 million and say, you already received $700,000, that is why I will give you a loan of $2.8 million. $3.5 million pre-sales minus $700,000 in down payment leaves $2.8 million for the bank to finance. And that is the money that the distributors will pay when the movie is delivered to them. The bank will also say, I'm acknowledging that you're not just having pre-sales generated, but you have other rights you're selling. And that is another $4 million. And how do I get there? I have $7.5 million international distribution revenues. I'm making international pre-sales of 3.5 million. That leaves me with 4 million in international sales I can still make. In this finance plan, we do not consider the US distribution revenues because the marketplace for the US is very volatile and banks do not bank against the US market unless it is an actual established pre-sale, which is not the situation here. We're selling the US rights after the movie is finished. So therefore, our collateral or unsold rights can really only go against the 7.5 million international value. Again, 7.5 million international distribution revenues minus 3.5 million generated in pre-sales leaves us with $4 million in rights we can still sell. The bank doesn't know if we will sell all those rights and will therefore discount this loan to 50% and give us a $2 million gap loan against unsold rights. Altogether, we get 2.8 million plus 2 million, a loan of 4.8 million from the bank. They're charging us a 12% interest up front as a reserve, and we will be left with $4,224,000 as a bank loan. So now we have $700,000 down payment and $424,000 from the bank. We're shooting the movie in an incentivized region, and we're getting a loan for that as well, which, by the way, the bank can also do. Could be part of the debt bank loan, or you can go to an incentive lender who will give you this money up front. There's going to be a fee against it. I'm keeping it simple here, so I'm not deducting the fee for this first finance plan. We will be doing this in future finance plans though, and you will see that on Canvas. So anyway, we have another 2 million here coming from subsidies. So altogether, we have generated $6,924,000 in sources for financing. 6,924,000 minus 10 million leaves us with 3,076,000 that we still have to cover from equity, and that's what we're going to do. Therefore, the equity investment reflects 30.8% of the production budget. So now the question is, will this case study be where we're basically reducing the equity from 100% to 30% give us a profit? Let's find out. Again, we're making the movie for $10 million. We're generating $11 million in distribution revenues. We have to deduct the down payment we already received, leaving us with $10,300,000 in gross revenues that we will be getting as we are delivering the film to the buyers. So we're generating $10,300,000 from the buyers. We are paying our collection agent 1% for collecting all the money from the buyers and taking it and paying everyone that needs to get paid. We're paying our sales agent their sales fee of $1,650,000. We're paying our bank loan, including the interest of $4.8 million. We're paying our equity investment of $3,076,000. We're paying the premium that is due on this equity investment, which is 20% of $3,076,000, $615,200, and we are generating total expenses of $10,244,200. Guess what? We are making a profit. This time, by changing the finance plan elements, we're generating $55,800 as a profit with the same film, just changing the finance components. And here's now our summary. We are making a movie for $10 million. We are generating $3.5 million from the US, $7.5 million from the international distribution revenues, deducting the down payment of 20% that the distributors already paid, are left with $10,300,000 in gross revenues. We're paying our collection agent 1% for collecting these gross revenues and for handling all the payments that are now due. Due is the sales and distribution fee of $1,650,000 to the sales agent. Due is the bank loan of $4.8 million, including the interest. Due is the equity investment of $3,076,000 plus the related premium of 20% of this investment, $615,200. Total expenses that are due are $10,244,200, and we're making now a revenue of $55,800 versus having run a loss before simply by changing our finance sources. I would like you to run this same case study using the same assumptions percentage-wise, as in the movie is now not $10 million but $15 million in budget. You are generating 35% of the budget in distribution revenues from the US. You are generating 75% of that budget from the international marketplace. You are doing pre-sales of 35% of the budget. You are banking those pre-sales with a bank who's charging you a 12% interest for the pre-sale loan and the gap loan. The gap loan is going to be charged on the unsold rights portion that is still available after the pre-sales have been contracted and have been banked. You are including a 20% subsidy loan in your finance plan, and you are covering the balance with equity, and you're going to see how much percentage you need. So focus on the percentages in connection with the $15 million budget and tell me how much profit this $15 million film will now generate.